Today we speak with two experts from around the world. Around 400 million children across the globe are right now unable to go to school due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A growing number of countries have decided to keep schools shut until the worst of the virus is over and are also taking their classes online. But this poses challenges not only for teachers and students, but parents as well. To discuss how all of those involved can actually handle these new responsibilities and abrupt changes, we have joining us today Mr Glenn Gallagher, a teacher at Mayport Coastal Sciences Middle School in Florida. We also have Dr. Suh Sooyeon, Professor of Psychology at Sungshin Women's University in Seoul. Well, first of all, to you, Mr Gallagher, it seems that online or virtual classrooms are taking off in the US for university students, but now they're going to primary and secondary schools as well. So how are school teachers coping with the transition, especially for the younger students?
Day by day. The school teachers are working day by day, and it's a large learning curve that is getting smaller and smaller by the day, which is great. But it's a learning curve, and it's a new path, and we're working well together. It's a collective effort, really is. Proud of everybody.
I imagine it takes a lot of rescheduling and having to adapt the curriculum to make it optimized for online. I mean, how is that?
Well, thankfully, I was thinking about this. Thankfully, we are really working right now, working into the fourth quarter of our school year, where we would really be preparing for our final exam. And so we've really covered. I actually finished my last benchmark today with my students. So we'd be covering review, and we'd be preparing for final exam. Well, the state of Florida has canceled all final exams. So that it's a good feeling. It's a strange feeling, but luckily for us, we haven't had to change the curriculum too much. I think if this happened or ever occurs in, if you will, September, October, it could be very difficult to adjust to. It'd be a different adjustment.
Well, that's a fortunate situation then in the US. But here in South Korea, we've been looking into where the education authorities here have also decided to take the curriculum online. Well, Dr. Suh, in South Korea, all these school children, they've had their academic year they normally have their academic year scheduled down to the hour with, after-school activities, private tutoring. That fills up most of their day while their parents are at work. Well, with this drastic change to the school year, children have been home for nearly 2 months now. How has this impacted the modern family culture?
Well, one of the biggest changes that have happened to modern families is being physically together for prolonged periods of time in the same space, and prove that's stressful for both the children and the family. And based on the age of the children, there's definitely there are definitely concerns about meeting educational milestones and maintaining social relationships with peers. And right now, we're finishing up week 6 of adjusting to the new normal, and I think on one side we're seeing people adjust, but on the other hand, we are seeing issues with parents becoming wary of the situation as it continues, and a rise in marital conflict, domestic violence, and I think right now it seems it's one of the most crucial times to keep our emotions in check and make sure we're coping well with the situation.
Well, and that's the tough thing, isn't it? Because parents, they always do want their best for their children, but then it's so hard to keep on top of all these new added responsibilities, the home. And, well, Mr Gallagher, what are some things that parents should prepare for and keep in mind during this transition to online learning?
I think I could back up what Dr. Suh is saying is patience. Be patient with it all. It's something that they're learning. The students are learning how to use electronics in a different way than they've ever used before. Some students who certainly adapt better, but some students really have never done this before, even uploading or downloading a Word or an Excel document. It's a challenge. But and I've spoken with a lot of parents in the last week, and we ask to just be patient. We're all in it together. And very, very communal and collective. And I think, I've seen the really bright side of people the last 2 weeks, and it's good to see.
Right, well, you're on week 2 right now with children staying home, but here in South Korea, it's been around week 7, and well, you know, Dr. Suh, having children at home and managing their education can really be more than a handful for the parents. Is it normal then to feel overwhelmed? And if so, how should parents handle their stress?
No, absolutely. It is very normal to feel overwhelmed. And I think one of the biggest challenges for parents during this crisis, especially for working parents like me, has been parenting and educationing and working all in one confined physical space. And when this happens, you know, tasks that were compartmentalized before kind of become blurred together, which can cause a lot of stress for parents. And I think it's very easy to feel overwhelmed during this time, and also an important time for parents to kind of take a step back and know that it's important to manage their own emotions first, as children tend to take emotional cues from their parents. So they want to make sure they're putting themselves first as well. One of the things that I think would be helpful is sticking to a routine. Just because your children don't have to go to school or a parent doesn't have to go into work shouldn't mean that children should be allowed to be on vacation mode and sleep at odd hours or be in their pajamas all day. So children definitely respond very well to structure and predictability. So making sure that children continue with some type of routine during the day can make parenting a lot more manageable. And relaxing some of the parenting standards can also be helpful. For example, not being too strict about screen time and letting the children get some extra screen time so you can catch a break can definitely be worth it.
Right, so a strict routine, well, not so strict, but a routine anyway, that would be helpful for the parents as well, I suppose, helping them manage their time as well and cope with the stress of it all. Well, I imagine children must also be stressed about not being able to go to school and meet their friends, on top of the worries that they have about this coronavirus outbreak. Dr. Suh, then how should parents guide their children through this period of uncertainty?
I think taking the time to explain the situation to your children can really make a very big difference during this difficult time. And based on whatever age your child is, it's important for parents to use age-appropriate language to explain why they're staying home and not being able to go to school or visit with their friends. And sometimes children have heard very scary information about dying if they catch the virus. So making sure you're providing children with accurate information can also be very helpful. And oftentimes parents avoid talking about the situation with their children because they're afraid themselves. And it's essential for parents to reassure children that they're safe, such as telling them that there are very smart doctors and nurses doing everything they can to fight the virus. And additionally, letting them know that they're welcome to ask questions about the situation, and keeping those communication lines open can really help reassure them during a difficult time. And finally, I'm sure Glenn can talk a little bit more about this, but having children not physically play with their friends is very difficult. So trying to stay connected on some level or engaging in some joint activities that can be done remotely, I think, can be an alternative to fulfilling some of the social needs that children have during this time.
Right, so Dr. Suh, what you're saying is that parents, to help their children really deal with their own stress or sources of stress, is to be honest with them, informative, but at the same time be reassuring and let them know that they're there for them to talk. Well, Mr. Gallagher, well, how are teachers communicating with students amid all of this and helping them adjust to their new way of learning?
We do use we are using online video classes. We're using Microsoft Teams. That's the best thing I can speak for what we're using here in Florida. I think it's working well. My lessons every day this week have been productive. I think the students are engaged. Some of the issues that we have is, again, that parent monitoring that maybe Dr. Suh has talked about a little bit. Some of the students are, quote unquote, maybe skipping class, but that's something that teachers have to follow up on for sure. But we have to be very lenient with all of our students right now. We need to give them a little bit of a break. It's all new to them, but it's an interesting idea, because there are many experts, educational experts, who have been saying this for years, that this is the direction that we very well could be going, coronavirus or not, or any virus, any type of epidemic or pandemic. This is the direction that we can go.
And how are you going to help students adjust socially? Because the classroom isn't just about academics, it's also about social interactions.
Correct. And I think some students are really missing that. And I do feel bad for them. Try to just keep them positive. Those students who have siblings, like my children, I'm very proud of them. They're working, they're socializing very well together. A 12 and a 10-year-old girl who could clash at times, but they're really doing a great job. And then I spoke with some children, and they kind of like the break. They like the quiet. Not everybody likes the fast motion of the day. You know, we're very, very busy society. And I think some of them actually like the idea of being able to work at their own pace.
I see. So we're seeing a lot of changes brought to our home culture, our learning culture, but hopefully we can get through it and see the light at the end of the tunnel, really, at the end of this pandemic. Well, that's all the time we have today, unfortunately, but thank you very much for joining us, Glenn Gallagher in Florida and Dr. Suh Sooyeon in Seoul.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is also where we wrap up our show. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you back next week for more global insights on issues making headlines. Have a lovely weekend wherever you are. Goodbye.